Ravindra Mhatre was your instructor at the IFS Academy and you knew him personally. How shocking was his killing in 1984?
In those days, there was no IFS Academy when I joined. We were sent to different sections to train. And he was in the passport and visa section. Such a gentleman who would listen to us and, offer us very practical insights, which stood us very well. So when he was abducted, in those days, this is the pre-internet age. So the news would come to you rarely through a newspaper which came by the diplomatic bag. And when Ravindra Mhatre was abducted, there was a concern. But when he was assassinated, I think that time we were all deeply shocked because A, it had never happened to an Indian diplomat, and B, it happened to such a gentle person, Ravindra Mhatre, in what was considered a very safe posting in Birmingham. So I think all these showed us that now nowhere was safe.
Aditya, tell us how you began this investigation and how, without revealing, of course, the murderer, but tell us this whole process for the last couple of months, how you went about this.
Well, it's been close to 4 months now, Sandeep, that we've been investigating this. And one thing very curious was that every year in Feb, I used to hear this name Ravindra Mhatre, at least for the last decade.
He died before you were born.
Yes, he actually died before I was born. But the fact is that I have been hearing this name time and again, but never did I realize that what were the facts of this case. I knew that some terrorists had killed him, abducted him, but it was only after I was interviewing a source. And during that interview, the conversation went to Mhatre's killing. And that source told me that, have you ever bothered to check about the killer? And that led me to investigate this case further. I spoke to a lot of other people in UK, in Pakistan, in Kashmir, in Netherlands. And finally, I tracked down the killer. And this two-part documentary that we have made, Murder of an Indian Diplomat, not just reveals how the abduction happened, how the killing happened. We've recreated the entire sequence in UK. We've shot in United Kingdom, in Birmingham, as well as in London. And we also speak to the family members of Ravindra Mhatre, his daughter Asha, who was just 14 years old at that time. And interestingly, it was her birthday during that time. We also speak to, very importantly, two witnesses in this case, crucial witnesses. One of the witnesses is the man who was one of the co-founders of JKLF, and he reveals that in front of him, the killing was ordered. And the second witness is also a senior functionary of the JKLF, who actually reveals how not only Ravindra Mhatre, but two senior functionaries of Government of India, one a former Prime Minister and one top ambassador, were also supposedly, there was a conspiracy to kill them in UK and in France. So there are multiple revelations that are coming out in these multiple documentaries. But the question now is that tomorrow afternoon, that we reveal who killed Ravindra Mhatre and where he is hiding. Will the Government of India, and particularly will the Government of UK, the Rishi Sunak government, really put their act together and not just trace him, but ask that country to arrest him, extradite him, and bring to justice him immediately.
So, Sushant, it turns out that Ravindra Mhatre's killer is still alive and well, from what Aditya has found out, and he's in a country that you know absolutely nothing about, Pakistan. But does that surprise you?
Well, I was under the impression that his killer might be either in the UK or the US. No, it doesn't surprise me at all. Look, the fact of the matter remains that that entire killing and that entire incident was basically a Pakistani-inspired thing. That is the time they were trying to... Remember, that was also the time when this whole Khalistan nonsense had started in Punjab. And Punjab, there was a lot of ferment in Punjab, and the mid-80s was a very torrid time. Terrorism was running rampant in Punjab. There was all kinds of problems happening. And it is under that time that, they started making a push. So people, when they say that it was that rigged election in Kashmir and that is why everything went out of the... It's like the dumbing down of history of the worst kind. Because the plot to start agitating or do the kind of murder and mayhem in Kashmir, it started in around the early 80s.
Right.
And this whole incident of the Mhatre killing was linked to what happened subsequently. So I'm not surprised that the guy actually went and is living in Pakistan, probably in comfort. Amanullah Khan, for example, I used to meet Amanullah Khan very often whenever I used to go to Pakistan.
Right.
And frankly, there was a time when Amanullah Khan was very well to do. And towards the end of it, he had been dumped, and he used to live literally in poverty. He couldn't even afford to give you a cup of tea, even though he'd come to meet you. He was that badly off. But the point is that these were people who were then given refuge in Pakistan. They were never allowed to go out from Pakistan.
Yeah.
They were kept by the Pakistanis safe and secure. So if this particular guy whom you're talking about, I don't know who Aditya is talking about, but it doesn't come as a surprise at all. Not for a second does it come as a surprise. But look, here is also where the problem comes. It's the kind of license that these so-called Five Eyes have given to Pakistan.
Right.
That you can do what you want to do. There will never be any pressure on you. We will never force you to shuck up anybody. Let me just digress for a second. There is this Pakistani dissident. Now, India doesn't go after dissidents, right? Never has. But there is this Pakistani dissident who's basically a YouTuber and, comes on Twitter Spaces, abuses everybody, is that kind of a guy. The Pakistanis hatched a plot. The plot was hatched by the ISI. They paid a British Pakistani money to go and bump this guy off in Netherlands. The British intelligence got wind of it and they arrested this guy. The guy has been tried. He has been convicted. The Brits have not gone and come out openly against the Pakistani intelligence agencies which ordered this hit. Why? I think this is the question which needs to be asked.
Right.
Why are they not doing it? The reason is because all these guys then want to use the Pakistani dirty tricks department for their own ends. So the Pakistanis will give them some information about some terrorist plot which could be affecting them and stuff like that. So they don't want to rile the Pakistani intelligence agencies and they want to do business with it. The Americans, despite the fact that the ISI was responsible for the killing of thousands of Americans,
right,
the Americans will continue to sleep in bed with the Pakistanis and not have anything to say, to whatever has been done to them. That's the ugly world we live in. So when these guys start sermonizing to us, when they start hectoring us and telling us that we did not expect you to do this, what did you expect us to do? Turn the other cheek?
Ambassador Singh, we began investigating the story precisely because of all the threats against Indian diplomats in North America and in the UK. What do you think the government of India must do now? The Mhatre murder was something that was left as an unsolved, killing. While we might have got our revenge by hanging Maqbool Butt 5 days later, the case was never really pursued. In the light of the new evidence that we've gathered, including, we've spoken to some very key people around that time who've actually confessed to us. What do you think the government of India must do now?
I have lived through rather difficult times in Sri Lanka. And I was also there in 1998 when the US embassy in Nairobi was bombed. And our embassy went under almost like collateral damage. Now, in such cases, retaliation is hardly the answer, particularly if a diplomat's life is lost. The Americans lost a huge amount of life when their embassies in Lebanon and Nairobi were bombed, for instance, but their reactions were very different. Now, in the case of India, we have also unfortunately lost diplomats, 2 of them at the gate of our embassy in Kabul a few years ago. But the situations differ. What really happens is that the diplomatic route is blocked and a subterranean route takes over, in very often due to a lack of intelligence or a breakdown of intelligence cooperation. Now, in many cases, people who are supposed to protect Indian interests, I think suddenly lose track of what is happening or about to harm them. Or sometimes the back channels just stop working. In my view, the moment back channels stop working, that is an alert and the system must respond. But I don't think the system works in a cohabitative manner. Now, when you talk about the breakdown of a strategic partnership, you will notice how differently India has reacted to Canada and the US.
Yes.
Right. Now, in the case of the people concerned, evidently, every Sikh killed in Canada is not the source of Canadian angst with India. It is only one Sikh killed who is the source of angst with India. So that means these people are agents of the establishment whose loss is or protection is considered important, but not the life of every PIO in their countries. Right. Now, somewhere there is a breakdown that they felt compelled to go with their local interest to the point that clear-cut attacks on Indian diplomats were ignored and condoned.
Right.
Now, this is a breakdown. Now, you can say we will do it in India and all this. You can do all that. But I think these are parallel tracks within a country's foreign policy which work. And if one of them breaks down, the other one needs to pull its weight. And how it pulls its weight is different.
Right. Aditya, interesting point that Ambassador Singh mentioned, how different our reactions were to Canada and then later to the United States. We've fully cooperated with the United States, but we haven't said the same, sent out the same message to Canada. Explain to us this difference in the way we've reacted to these two countries and how it's going to play out in the next couple of weeks.
Well, it's abundantly clear, Sandeep, that India's relationship with US is of paramount importance. The strategic partnership, not just in the time of Biden, but this goes far back. Particularly also, no matter if the Republicans are in power or the Democrats, we've had a very robust strategic partnership and now a 2+2 dialogue that recently concluded, a yearly dialogue that takes place in Washington DC as well as in New Delhi. So I think that's why India is treating this case very sensitively when it comes to US. With Canada, for a very long time, we have seen that politically, the political class of Canada has not shown the maturity to change its stance, to change its policy when it comes to the Khalistani terrorists. And now they are bearing the brunt of this. And India also realizes this, that Canada has been nurturing these snakes in the backyard who are going to harm them. And it's not just about the Khalistani terrorists, but we also see now that there are open gang wars that are happening on the Canadian soil. There are gangsters like Brar, who was responsible for the killing of Sidhu Moosewala, who's been staying there. There are many others. And there are open gang wars that are happening. There are openly terrorists who are learning to use the gun, the AK-47, on Canadian soil and preaching hatred against India and many other countries, and perhaps receiving money also from Pakistan and elsewhere. Right. So I think Canada perhaps is not as strong with India as the US is. So US relationship matters to India much more, and that's why India is delicately treating that. And I'm sure that in the back door at the level of the MEA and at the level of the National Security Council, there are multiple dialogues that are happening. You spoke about the visit of the FBI director for the first time in 12 years. And that's why US is trying to escalate this matter to another level, because as you know, the trial would be beginning soon, and perhaps in the next 3 to 7 months, the trial would be ending, and we'll know in which direction US will go in this particular case. But as of now, it seems that US is particularly trying to strong-arm India at a time when India has gone all guns blazing against Canada.
News9 Plus. Download now.